Justin Warner.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to my colleague across the way for his speech and for the introduction of this bill. Much of my time here in Ottawa is spent on the Public Safety Committee, and many of these issues have been brought up for years that we need to improve upon. And my previous career in law enforcement, we also had similar issues that we were kept bringing forward over and over and over again. My questions are twofold. One, why did it take so long when there was so much pressure to deal with the smuggling of firearms and the fentanyl issues and the porous borders with immigration? What took so long to get at this? And number two, you had provisions in the Act.
I do have to provide some time for a response to the Minister for Public Safety, a brief response.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I look forward to having a longer discussion with my friend opposite. Mr. Speaker, we were elected on April the 30th. This Prime Minister had a mandate to ensure and we address the issues around the border. As a first act of Parliament, we brought in this legislation and we're looking for support from all parties to get this through, Mr. Speaker.
Reprise du débat, the Honourable Member for Kamloops Thompson Nicola.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It's always a pleasure to rise on behalf of the people from Kamloops, Thompson, Nicola. I welcome you to the chair. I'm amazed at how quickly they got your robes. Congratulations. As always, it's an honor to be here. It's an honor to share this space with my colleagues from all parties. Pardon me. As somebody who is the child of immigrants who never really thought they would see the green carpet of the House of Commons, except when I saw it when I was 12 years old, looking through doors similar to those ones in Centre Block. It's just such a profound honor. So with that, I want to, in my first substantive intervention in this House, thank the voters of Kamloops, Thompson, Nicola. It is Italian Heritage Month, which seems quite poignant, given that there are so many people of Italian heritage. I know we're welcoming 2 or 3 just to our side of the bench, and I know that there are a few on the other side. Congratulations to all members. And speaking of congratulations, Mr. Speaker, I want to begin by congratulating a former colleague at the bar in Kamloops. Her name is Justice Loriana Bennett. She was actually promoted to the bench, I believe, by the Minister of Public Safety when he was the Minister of Justice. I appeared briefly before Justice Bennett when I was still working as a lawyer for the province. I believe that she will be a wonderful addition to the BC Supreme Court, where she was recently elevated. Being Italian Heritage Month as well, I should also note that she is also of Italian heritage, just like me and many others here. So I wish Justice Bennett all the best in her judicial career. On a bit of a sadder note, Mr. Speaker, there are a lot of people who passed during prorogation and during the election. For those who've heard me speak in the House before, they know that I often like to recognize people who've passed during this time in the House of Commons during my speeches. So the first person I want to recognize, Mr. Speaker, I want to recognize the life of David Richard Bartlett, just 37 years old. His father, Jim, was actually my boss when I first entered the workforce at about 22 years old as a parole officer. His dad taught me a lot, and he also leaves behind his brother, Andrew. May perpetual light shine upon him. Also, on a sadder note, Mr. Speaker, I want to recognize the life of Augusto Bernardo. Like my family, he also originated from Calabria in southern Italy. I have such fond memories of Augusto. I actually remember going to his farm when I was 8 or 9 years old to get chickens with my dad. He was such a character. I just always remember him smiling whenever I would see him. He was always so excited and happy to say hi to me. I miss that vivacious smile. I know he lived a really good life. His children, Donisa, Gisela, Marcella, and Dino. They're all incredibly successful people, but more importantly, they all have wonderful hearts. They all serve their community in such a beautiful way. His legacy is well entrenched with his children. May perpetual light shine upon him. Mr. Speaker, another person who passed away very young, somebody who was about my age, maybe a few years older than me, was a man by the name of Chris McKenzie. We actually got to know each other when we were in youth group, and we traveled all the way from Kamloops to Denver to see the Pope in 1993. We went to high school together. Again, I know he was a talented musician. He had a love of music, but also just always had a smile on his face when we were in school. He leaves behind daughters Tristan, Brooklyn, and Danica, their mother, Tammy, his mother, Darlene, his father, Dwayne, and his siblings, Charla, Heather, and Andrew. May perpetual light shine upon him. I have a few more people I wish to go through, Mr. Speaker, but in the meantime, perhaps I'll get to the substance of my speech. Let's make no mistake about it, Mr. Speaker. This is an omnibus bill, and I can't tell you how many times Liberals spoke about omnibus bills. You know, we often hear about the ghost of Stephen Harper in these places, but they frequently railed against the Harper government and omnibus bills. And here we have the government tabling an omnibus bill, but it's not quite omnibus enough to include key areas. Let's look at the bill. 130 pages, Mr. Speaker. I'm just looking at it right now. I don't see here anything about bail. Pretty big issue in the news just today. It's pretty much in the news every single day. Nothing about bail. My colleague just said, do you want bail in it? Heck yes, I want bail in it. We really want to deal with bail. We as Conservatives want to deal with bail. In fact, I had 2 private members' bills, Mr. Speaker, that dealt with bail last time. One of them was in response to the killing of Constable Pirjala, a police officer. I believe he was in his late 20s, mid-20s. And he was killed. I believe I could say was killed. The person is no longer accused. They went to trial by somebody on bail. His first shift alone, just past his probation period. That person was also had a firearms prohibition. Those prohibitions are now being treated like they're not worth the paper they're written on. So I invite my colleague from Winnipeg, who heckled me and said, do you want bail in it? Yes, we want bail in it. I will gladly take him up. I will gladly meet with the Minister of Public Safety. In fact, in questions and comments, I want him to stand up, Mr. Speaker. It actually doesn't take much to cajole him to stand up, even if there are 30 people behind him. The Liberals are laughing because they know it's true. And tell me, will they pass Bill C-313 from the last Parliament that made the hill much harder to climb for people who were previously convicted of gun charges and on firearms prohibitions? This is a small, discrete group of people. So in his prelude, Mr. Speaker, I challenge him to say, yes, we will support Bill C-313 or my other private member's bill on bail that targeted a very small but discrete group of people who were accused of 3 indictable offenses at one time, as in those files had not been resolved, with 10 years or more. Those offenses are like robbery, manslaughter, assault with a weapon, assault causing bodily harm by indictment. Again, I invite that member. He's been here for a long time. He speaks on behalf of the government. Does he have the guts to stand up and say, we will incorporate the principles of those bills in here? I would love to work with the government to address bail. What about fentanyl sentencing, Mr. Speaker? I wonder if the member from Winnipeg is on side with his party's views on sentencing. You know, it's like we're getting this tough on crime stuff from the Liberals. And you know what we heard? In fact, it was this member too. Now that I come to think of it, it was a member from Winnipeg. I introduced a bill about sexual offenses. And the whole point of the bill on sexual offenses was to raise the sentence on sexual offenses, because a lot of people don't know this, but sexual offenses are actually treated less seriously than property offenses in some regards. For instance, if you break into somebody's house, the maximum sentence is life imprisonment. If you rob somebody, those who don't know, robbery is theft with an element of violence. You go to jail for life. But if you take somebody's dignity and consent, a crime of violence, just like robbery, the maximum sentence is 10 years. So I was bringing this up, and who did I get heckled by? Tough on crime, he said. The member from Winnipeg. So they will tell us how tough they are on crime now, when they mocked us last time, and not only will they tell us how tough they are on crime, they will do little about it. So this omnibus bill, fentanyl sentencing. You can serve your sentence for trafficking in fentanyl from your couch. I challenge any Liberal, there's going to be 10 minutes for questions and comments. I challenge any Liberal who rises to say to me, through you, Mr. Speaker, I agree with that. I agree that people who traffic in one of the deadliest drugs, if not the deadliest drug that we know of, who are literally peddling poison, and I'm speaking right to the Liberals here, those who are prepared to look me in the eye when I say this, that it is okay that they sit at home playing their video game system, listening to their favorite music, sleeping in their bed, when they are literally peddling poison. House arrest. Let's go another one, Mr. Speaker. Firearms offenses. And these actually, one of the offenses in a case called Regina and Oud out of British Columbia was upheld by the BC Court of Appeal as being a constitutional mandatory minimum. Discharge with intent. Discharge with intent. That's a drive-by shooting, those types of things. The Liberals legislated that you could serve that sentence at home. Previously, it was a 4-year mandatory minimum. They kept the 5-year minimum if it was a handgun or a restricted firearm. But oftentimes the guns aren't ever recovered. Nobody says, I just did a drive-by, police, here's the gun. This doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. And the Liberals are telling us they are tough on crime. And they say, look at our Border Act. 130 pages. Look at this. We're so tough on crime. I challenge any member of the Liberals who will stand up, I challenge them again to say, through you, Speaker, I am okay with people who do drive-by shootings with serving their sentence at home. Okay? People will say, oh, you're just tough on crime indiscriminately. But to the contrary, I think most people deserve a second chance. In fact, a lot of people do. Some people deserve a second chance because they've done something stupid. They've made decisions. They got into an addiction. A lot of people I saw, they were in a car accident and they were prescribed opiates. And next thing you know, they have an opiates addiction. We're not talking about locking the door and throwing away the key for the majority of offenders. What we're talking about is a small, discrete group of offenders. Nowhere in this bill does it talk about those things. So we are prepared to talk about everything but. We're prepared to talk about internet service providers and whether they have to turn over their materials without a warrant. And that's a response to a recent Supreme Court of Canada decision. For those who don't know, an ISP address is easily discoverable, but as I recall, I haven't read the case in some time or looked at the case in some time, but the police said, or the court said, you need a warrant. There's an expectation of privacy there. I could just go on and on and on about what isn't in this bill. But again, I challenge my Liberal colleagues. Will they have the guts to stand up and say, I am okay with those things. Because if they're not okay with those things, then why aren't they petitioning this government to amend the bill to be tough on the crime that they say they are tough on? Mr. Speaker, this bill has a number of elements to it. I think it's 15 parts. Obviously, the first part we're dealing with looks at CBSA, Canada Border Services and Canada Border Services Agency, and their ability to do searches. It was interesting because when the leader of the opposition in the last Parliament would say people were literally tracking their cars to our ports, seeing them go into containers, and they were told you can't trespass on that port. Well, I want to get my car back. Can't do it. We got laughed at as conservatives for this, for our supposed tough on crime. And here the Liberals are saying, oh, you conservatives need to pass this omnibus bill. We have a lot of questions about this bill. And I think that they think Canadians deserve to have these questions answered, Mr. Speaker. The Canada Post Corporation Act will be amended in Part 4 to permit the demand, seizure, detention, or retention of anything in the course of the post only in accordance with the Act of Parliament. So, as I understand that, Mr. Speaker, now, Madam Speaker, welcome to the chair. As I understand that, there is a judicial authorization, commonly known as a warrant. Typically, it's a warrant that's embedded there. But this is really interesting, and I would love for the government to expand on this, because this is something I know I'm going to get mail about, if I haven't gotten it already. And Part 4 allows Canada Post Corporation to open mail in certain circumstances. Now, as I understand it, and I'm not an expert in this regard, Madam Speaker, but the nature of mail has been regarded as private since Confederation, really. In other words, Canada Post has not been able to open somebody's mail. The reason now we're talking about language in the Charter, it's referred to as an expectation of privacy. The highest expectation is on your body, then you've got things like your phones, letters, but there's still an expectation of privacy there. So I'd really like to have the government explain what that threshold would be, and why is it that Canada Post would be doing this. Those are just questions that I think we really need to have answered. Similarly, the Coast Guard provisions. How's that going to look in practice? This is a really significant bill, Mr. Speaker, that I think we need a bit more information. I'm mindful of the fact that sometimes we always will have rights of the individual, and I noticed that a lot of my Liberal colleagues stood up and clapped when they spoke about the party of the Charter and Charter rights. As my colleague from Calgary, Nose Hill, noted, there is no Charter statement here. So the government was able to give us a 130-page bill with 15 parts, and when we say, where's the Charter statement, there's a bit of a shoulder shrug, the proverbial shoulder shrug with, it just came out 2 days ago. Well, if you can put out a 130-page bill, certainly you can put out a 4 or 5-page Charter statement. To me, it would amaze me, Madam Speaker, if nobody in the government went through this document and said, is it Charter compliant? Certainly somebody did. So the government that says, we are all about the Charter, we believe in this, won't tell Canadians what their experts have said about whether this legislation is Charter compliant. As a critic, how am I to respond to people who have very good faith inquiries about this type of legislation? The next part, Madam Speaker, it gets into citizenship and immigration. I'm not going to touch on that because I know that my colleague from Calgary, Nose Hill, will be dealing with that. I know I've got probably a few minutes left in my speech, 1 minute left in my speech. The last thing I want to do is reflect on the life of a good friend. His name was Mark Evard, and he wasn't Canadian, but he touched the lives of many Canadians. Mark passed away unexpectedly of a heart attack just before the election. I cannot understate the profound influence that this man had on my life. He leaves behind children, Stephen, Lauren, and Patrick. Got to spend time with Mark and Patrick right around the pandemic just before. Mark touched so many lives, and I wanted to recognize him here through his work in youth ministry, for the church, and as a servant. May perpetual light shine upon him, and it was my honor to know him. With that, I will conclude my speech and take questions, Madam Speaker. Thank you.